Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me for this video and I hope you're all doing well. The last couple of videos that I've done in the garden, people have been saying I'll do more videos in the garden. It's really sort of, it's a nice vibe sort of thing for a video. So I'm in a different part of the garden today. I don't know if you can see like the fish pond behind me, and there's a sort of a waterfall thing where the water runs down the waterfall into the pond, so you've got this kind of babbling water sort of sound in the background. So I hope that's not too distracting, but it's quite a peaceful part of the garden here, so I thought I'd try it here. Now this video I'm ranking the Beatles album covers. Now this wasn't a video that was kind of on my radar as something to do as a video, but when I did about a month ago, I did a video ranking the solo Beatles covers albums, the albums they did of covers, like John's Rock and Roll, or Paul's Russian album, or the Run Devil Run, that sort of stuff. People were coming on the comments and saying, oh, I wasn't expecting that, I was expecting you to be ranking the album covers, not covers albums. They're saying that that would be a good idea for a video, and I'm not sure if it is a good idea for a video, but I thought I'd do it anyway because it's quite a nice easy one to do. So I'm going to rank the core albums, the core Beatles albums, in the order that I like them best. I'm also going to give a couple of honourable mentions to a couple of non-core Beatles albums that I really like the artwork for. So I don't really know that much about art, to be honest. I'm not really an arty-farty type person, one of these people, you know what you like and you like what you know, sort of thing. There was a long time where I thought Pablo Picasso played centre half for Real Madrid, but as I say, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sleeves and rank them in order of my preference, which probably won't be the same as your preference, but you can tell me yours down in the comments if you want to. Okay, so 13 albums. I'm going to kick off with my number 13, which is Please Please Me. Nothing wrong with this album sleeve at all. The reason why this one comes last on my list is I think that when this came out in 1963, pop groups didn't really think of the album sleeves as being a piece of art. It was more kind of an advertisement for the album, if you like, where they would have the name of the band, the name of the album, and something like this, Please Please Me with Love Me Do and 12 other songs, a kind of advert for what is actually on the album, a bit like a hype sticker, but kind of actually printed on the sleeve. Now this sleeve, we know famously a photo taken by Angus McBean, and when he took this photo at the Manchester Square EMI offices, with the Beatles looking over the balcony, he had to kind of lie flat on his back on the pavement to take the photo. Now originally they wanted to take the album sleeve photo at the Insect House at London Zoo. Insect House, Beatles, you could see where they were going with that one, but London Zoo wouldn't give them permission to do it, so they couldn't do it, which was probably a good thing in the end, so we ended up with this one. So this is my number 13. Number 12, Hard Day's Night. I do really like this sleeve. I like the kind of comedy aspect of it. It kind of looks like a contact sheet, a photo contact sheet. There's lots of there's a little bit of comedy in here with the Beatles pulling faces, and they all kind of look the same with the haircuts, and they all kind of look as if they're wearing the same sort of sweater as well. But I do like this photo taken by Robert Freeman in his London studio, and that is my number 12. Number 11 is also a film album, that's Help, again Robert Freeman. Now he wanted them to semaphore the letters for help, H-E-L-P. When they did it, he didn't really like the look of it, so he got them to semaphore these letters, which are actually N-U-J-V, Nujv, whatever that means, but it doesn't spell out help, but for Robert Freeman this was more aesthetically pleasing, so that's kind of what is important, I suppose. So Help, that is my number 11. My number 10 is Let It Be. Photos taken by Ethan Russell during the Let It Be sessions, or the Get Back sessions. I've always really liked this sleeve with each Beatle in its, in his own box. The kind of hairy Beatles. I've just always really liked it with the, the black, border. Very nice sleeve indeed. That is my number 10. Number nine is the White Album. There's not too much you can say about this. This was designed by Richard Hamilton, with Paul McCartney working as his assistant on this. Now, Paul wanted something that was the complete opposite to Sgt Pepper, which was obviously very psychedelic and very busy and very vibrant. And the White Album, well, it's just white, isn't it? And so they kind of achieved what they wanted. But I do really like the cleanness of the plain white sleeve with just the Beatles embossed on it. Obviously, the early copies of the White Album had the had an individual number on it as well, and that kind of made it like a kind of a limited edition, or like a collector's item. Ringo Starr had the one that was 00000001, which he sold, and I think it raised nearly $800,000 when it was auctioned. Now, Richard Hamilton, the real artwork for this album was really the poster, which Richard Hamilton also designed as well, with Paul helping. But my number 9 is the White Album. Number 8 for me is Magical Mystery Tour. Always really like the sort of the vibrant colours on this sleeve with the the psychedelic Magical Mystery Tour logo. Now, the booklet that came with this album was like laden with Paul is dead clues, but the sleeve has got just one, I think, and that is, if you turn it upside down, they said that the word Beatles, if you join up the stars with a pen, it forms a number. So the S becomes a 5, the E becomes a 3, the T becomes a 7, etc., etc. So and they said that number was a phone number, and if you rang that number at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, you would get to speak to the actual Billy Shears, which of course wasn't true. But here's another clue for you all: the hippo was Paul. So that's Magical Mystery Tour number 8. So at number 7, I'm going for this classic shot from With the Beatles. Now, I think that by the time we got to With the Beatles were now important enough to have some sort of input into how their album sleeves looked. And this photo taken by Robert Freeman was taken actually on their UK tour. It was taken while they were in Bournemouth at the Bournemouth Palace Court Hotel, and it was taken actually in the corridor on one of the floors. Now, on that, but right by where they were standing for this shot, there was a window. I don't know if it was like a roof window or a wall window, but it let in some natural light, and that's how he managed to get this sort of part dark, part light effect on their faces. The photograph itself is very similar to the photographs that Astrid Kirchner was taking of the band in Hamburg back in the early days. But they're all with the same haircut, all wearing the same sort of black polar neck sweater. Really fantastic shot, that classic photograph. So that is my number 7. At number 6, I'm going for Yellow Submarine, my least favourite album, but one of my favourite pieces of Beatle artwork. The sleeve designed by George Dunning, and the cartoon illustration by Heinz Edelman. And you know, these images, these cartoon images, they've adorned so many pieces of Beatles memorabilia and merch as well. And you know, going right back from the time when it was released to now. Even now, you're seeing like lunch boxes and pencil cases with these cartoon images on them. It's a really cool sleeve, I think. So that is my number 6. Love it. Number 5 for me is the classic Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. You know, again, very psychedelic, very vibrant, very busy indeed, full of heroes and icons that the Beatles chose themselves. The waxwork Beatles there. Few clues to the Paul is dead thing here. They were saying this is a kind of a, you know, a grave here, and you've got the Paul question mark here in the shape of a bass guitar with some sticks going across to look like strings, that sort of thing. You had the doll in the corner who, when you look very carefully, is holding has got a glove. There's a glove there, the glove there, which has got blood on it, and in her hand she's holding a little toy car. He blew his mind out in a car. Obviously Peter Blake is the artist here, and the people at the front were life-sized sort of cardboard cutout, so it was a real sort of alive photo. That is my number 5. So at number 4, I'm going for Beetles For Sale. Just absolutely love this shot of the Beatles here in Hyde Park. Now, people always say that the Beatles look so, you know, look at their weary faces on the cover of this, and that really is the long and short of it. I mean, 1964, absolutely massive year for the Beatles. You know, 2 albums, they made a film, they went to America, the whole Ed Sullivan thing, breaking America, and a standalone hit single and an EP as well. And you know, they were absolutely shattered by the time it got to the end of the year, and I think that comes through in this picture. But I kind of like that. I like the moodiness of this photograph. So it's taken in Hyde Park by Robert Freeman. Beatles For Sale obviously was the first Beatles album that got a gatefold. Really fantastic sleeve. So that is my number 4. And number 3, I'm going for Revolver, designed and drawn by Klaus Voormann. The pictures of the Beatles drawn by Klaus. I think these are called line drawings, and he's designed all these pictures, which are full pictures that have been cut out and sort of put on various places on the sleeve. Now, when the Revolver box set came out last year, I did see online you could there was a map of all these pictures that are cut out, and there was a link to the actual full picture, which was really, really interesting to see some of them that we know about. Robert Freeman did submit a sleeve design for this, but it was rejected. That's the circular one, and we got that in the Revolver box set. Now, Klaus put a little Easter egg on this sleeve for us here with his own picture just in George's hair there, and just below his name, which I think is really cool. So number 3 is Revolver. Fantastic sleeve. My number 2, Abbey Road. Picture photographed by Ian Macmillan. Classic photo, very, very simple, but just so iconic. You know, it's a hot August morning, and 4 blokes decide to walk across a zebra crossing, and London instantly gets a brand new tourist attraction. I mean, you go down there any time of the day you like, and there will be people queuing up to walk across this zebra crossing to recreate this photograph. It's such a simple idea, but it is so iconic. Some more Paul is dead clues on here. Paul barefoot and out of step. You know, the Paul is dead lunatics. You know, they said that, you know, the fact that he was barefoot, that's the sign of a corpse, you know, because you get buried with no shoes on, which just isn't true. It isn't true. Normally when you get buried, you're fully dressed, and that includes your shoes as well. Now, the other big clue is the Volkswagen Beetle here with the number plate 28 if, which they said, you know, he would have been 28 if he'd lived. But when this came out in September 1969, Paul would have actually been 27 if he'd lived, obviously. But the main problem with the Volkswagen number plate is it doesn't actually say 28 if, because in the UK in the 60s, registration number plates, the last 4 characters were 3 numbers and a letter, not 2 numbers and 2 letters. So it's not an I, it's actually a 1. So the F, the letter, that indicates the year of manufacture. So F was 1967, so that Beetle was manufactured in 1967, but the number plate is actually 281F, not 28if. So big failing for the Beatles, for the Paul is dead conspiracy theories. But Abbey Road is my number 2, and I love it, love it, love it. So my number 1 album sleeve of all time is, of course, Rubber Soul. Now, I absolutely love how the Beatles look on this sleeve, with their hair growing ever longer. John's like brown suede jacket, just so cool, so 1965. Now, the photo was taken by Robert Freeman in John's back garden at his house in Weybridge. And how we get this kind of, you know, this stretched image, there is a story behind it, because when Robert Freeman wanted to show the Beatles the photos from the shoot, he had them round to his studio, and he was projecting the photos onto a piece of card about the same size as this, the size of an album sleeve, so they could get an idea of how the photo would look on an album sleeve. And when it got to this photo, the card kind of slipped over, and it made kind of the image that was being projected onto the card a bit longer. And Paul just absolutely loved that. He said, "Can you do that as an album sleeve?" And, you know, Robert Freeman said, "Yeah." He said, so Paul said, "Well, do it." So that's how we got this kind of this stretched image, which I really love, that kind of makes it look rubbery for Rubber Soul. But that's how we get that sort of stretched image. Now, the lettering of Rubber Soul, story for that as well. This was designed by a guy called Charles Front. Now, Charles Front, he lived in the same town in Essex as where as the one that I grew up in. So while Charles Front was in his studio designing this very Rubber Soul logo, 4-year-old little Beatley Tone was living just down the road. So that's quite a nice touch. Now, Charles Front, his daughter is Rebecca Front, and UK viewers will probably know Rebecca Front as a kind of comedy actress. She's been in lots of things with Alan Partridge. Lots of the Alan Partridge series have had Rebecca Front in them. So that's the story behind that. So Charles Front designed that Rubber Soul, which is also very iconic because it was much copied a couple of years later when we got to like sort of 1967 and the psychedelic years. This sort of bubble writing became you know, a very popular font for album sleeves and posters and stuff like that. So my number 1 album is Rubber Soul. Now, I just want to mention a couple of other sleeves that I really like that are not really core Beatles albums, but I do really like the sleeves. This one here, a collection of Beatles oldies but goldies. Love this sort of pop art design. It's just so 1966, very vibrant, very colourful, very psychedelic, just fantastic. The other ones that I wanted to mention was the anthologies, which were also designed by Klaus Voormann, Anthology 2 and Anthology 3. Now what I like about this is that Klaus gave us a little bit of an Easter egg, and I don't think you kind of notice it so much when you look, if you know, if you've just got the CDs in those sort of clunky double boxes. I don't think it really comes over as such. But if you join the albums together like this, the picture continues. So Anthology 1 onto Anthology 2, the picture kind of joins up like that, and it's the same when you get to Anthology 3. If I can just put it together. Like that. So that's really interesting. Now he did give us some other Easter eggs as well. We've got this kind of picture here of the Savage Young Beatles where he's covered over Pete Best's face and replaced it with a picture of Ringo, which is quite clever. Now we talked about Klaus Voormann leaving his picture on the Revolver sleeve. There it is there on Anthology 2, but on Anthology 3 he's also got the that same bit just there, but he's replaced the young Klaus Voormann picture with a picture of him when he was 58, which is when Anthology 3 came out. So I kind of really like that as well. So very clever. I do like the fact that if you put all 3 of the anthologies together, you get one continuous picture or poster, if you like, which is really great. So I really love that about anthologies. Okay, well that is it. I've been through I've ranked all the core albums. I've shown you a couple of others. Now this is, as I said at the start of the video, not the sort of thing that I normally do on this channel. It's a kind of a little bit of, Beatly Tones Beatles channel light, if you like. But if you like this kind of thing, the ranking of album covers, do tell me about it down in the comments, and maybe I'll do some of the the solo albums or something like that, if that's something that people want to see. If you want to make any comments about my rankings, or you want to give me your own rankings, you don't have to give me all 13. You can just give me your top 5 if you like. Be interested to hear what you think about these album sleeves. As you know, I read all your comments and I will respond to all your comments as well. Okay, so that is it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.